Well, hello everyone, James and Alma Curran. Today we are meeting with the amazing Dan and Terri Adler, the proud owners of Diamond Outfitters, hunting and adventure travel company, right? I'm saying those are four words.
Perfect.
Dan and Terri have been married for a long time. They're going to talk about that in a little bit. And they run a very successful business. And they have had multiple careers too prior to starting their successful business. So we're going to dive into all of that. And we really want to showcase how in life you can have it all. You can have a successful marriage. You can have a successful business. There is no separation from personal life to professional life. There is just life. We all just live one life. And in order for you to be successful in life, really, if you're choosing to be married, to get married, to stay married, you might want to make sure that your marriage is right, because that is a success. That is the key to success in life overall. Once upon a time, I read somewhere that for men, this is for all the men who are going to be watching this, happy wife, wealthy life. And I really bought into that. You know, when your marriage is thriving, when you are doing well in your marriage, you can have everything. You know, men's number one need is freedom. And when you're having a healthy, safe marriage, you can have your freedom too.
Conversely, if things are not going swimmingly at home, you're probably going to have a pretty serious ceiling that you're going to have to try to burst through or fix so that you can have that wealthy life.
Yeah. So we're on a mission to find the couples who prove us right, basically. So here we are. Dan and Terri. So, first of all, how long have you been married?
We've been married 22 and a half years, since April of 2003. We dated for almost 4 years before that. So we've been together a long time, more than half of our lives now. Best 26 years of her life, I always like to joke. But it was kind of funny. We were together so long before we got married. I remember when we called Terri's parents to let her know we got engaged. Her mom said something like, "It's about time." And then she had her congratulatory tones, but for sure we've been together a long time, and I certainly feel very, very blessed.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you have two beautiful children who are big now, right?
Yeah, 19 and almost 17, and just the joys of our lives for sure.
Yeah. And I know that you two have also done, you've been in other businesses before. And then you decided to join forces. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So we started off with separate careers out of college. I was a commissioned officer in the United States Air Force, and Terri was in physical therapy for many years. When I got out of the Air Force around 2005, I was reading a lot of Robert Kiyosaki and other entrepreneurship type books, and decided to go into entrepreneurship. So that was when I opened Diamond Outfitters, left the military and opened Diamond Outfitters, as well as a real estate company called what became later Diamond Property Group. At the time was the Dan Adler team. So we kind of grew our careers separately for the first 15 or so years, while Terri was really establishing herself as a very successful physical therapist. I was building more companies. And then at one point here, we got up to like 17, 18, 19 different LLCs in several different sectors and industries, which I kind of thought as an entrepreneur was like a big badge of honor. But what I've learned in the last 5 or 6 years, especially since Terri's come over, and I'll have her share that journey for herself. When we kind of united forces, it wasn't that big badge of honor that we had all these different companies, especially since coming into Russell's world. Like if we picked our favorite companies, the ones that had the most impact, where we could do the most for ourselves and for others, what would that opportunity look like? So Terri can probably tell the story of sitting on the patio with the grease board talking about should she retire from physical therapy and come over to help the businesses grow and thrive, or should we continue to work separately? Because that's been 6 or 7 years, probably 2018, 2019.
2018.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, there was a time where I was kind of dabbling a little bit in helping Dan with the business on the side, because I had backed off of physical therapy a little bit and gone part-time when the kids were young, and, trying to manage family life and a career, and figure out where that balance lies. So I was working part-time in physical therapy outside of the home, and then trying to help Dan on the back end with some admin work. And at some point, I don't know where it started, but I think I had grown tired of that career and was kind of looking for a change, and saw the sort of I don't want to call it freedom, because it's a different kind of freedom when you own your own business. You're not tied to someone else's schedule. You're tied to your schedule, which sometimes can mean more hours than you would work for someone else, where you can clock in and clock out. But was looking for a change, and we literally just got together, and just like he says, on one of those whiteboards, we're writing out the pros and cons of leaving physical therapy, starting in real estate, also working on Diamond Outfitters, because you were basically running multiple companies at the time, and just figuring out what that would look like, not just financially, but relationship wise, and what our roles would be and where we would go from there.
I think one of the fun parts that you guys can appreciate, and is probably part of the greater conversation today, is after we kind of did the whiteboard pluses and minus thing, for me, it was, I think I was one that probably was like, okay, we've already figured out like the financial piece and the time freedom piece and the ability to maybe be more flexible with the kids, because obviously if Terry's at a physical therapy appointment with a patient, she's not at the kids event X, Y, or Z. And if we go to work for ourselves, then she has control of that schedule, but now the work has to fill in for the time allowed, right? So that's what made us a little bit busier at the same time. But I think the fun part for me that you guys probably are interested in too is, okay, now we've identified the pluses and minuses and decided we probably want to move forward from a business perspective. I was like, hey, babe, how do you actually feel about like being stuck with me 24/7 now? Because we have a great home life, but now it's like, okay, I do this thing 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 hours a day. That means that's all time that we're together now. And I think I'm down for that, but you got to be down for that too. And we said things like, I believe we said things at the time like, hey, let's acknowledge this is a bad idea for a lot of couples, that especially if they're not already strong. And we were very strong, each other's best friends going into this. But I do feel like there was at least a little bit of the conversation. Part of the conversation was like, eyes wide open. Most people can't or shouldn't do this as couples, but we're not. Let's see what that looks like for us.
Yeah, I think we went in knowing, well, I don't really know what this looks like, but I'm totally willing and able, and I'm pretty sure it'll work out, because we just always had a really strong trust in whatever we're doing. Like, even if we don't know how it's going to work right now, we'll figure it out. And that's worked in our favor for a really long time over many different things. So I think just knowing that trust and willingness that it'll all work out and we'll figure it out as we go.
I think every time we finished a whiteboard conversation, if we had questions, like even when I was first entertaining leaving the military, I think one of the things we kept saying is, ultimately, we'll figure it out. And like, they could put that on my tombstone someday. Like, Terry and I have always been willing to double down on ourselves in business, in our relationship, and we will figure it out. And so it's kind of not necessarily a crutch now looking back over 20 years, but like, okay, if we don't have the answers at this moment, we'll figure it out. We'll trust each other and figure it out. And I think it's paid dividends. It's been fun, a lot of fun for me.
Yeah. Well, I think like a lot of things, you build that, I don't know what to call it, like your trust muscle or your figure it out muscle. Like it works one time, it's okay. And then you try it again, it works out. You try it again, it works out. So your ability to trust that process grows over time.
Yeah.
Knowing that we can both support it.
And I think I laugh a lot more since she's come over to business the last few years too.
That's good.
You laugh a lot more. What you feel you're supported. Other interviews I've done, I've talked about the business exploded when Terry came over. I think the things she leveraged me to do and the things she could take off my plate really allowed me to focus on the things that I'm best suited for the company for growth. Nowadays we refer to it, we didn't know this term necessarily at the time, but like staying in your genius and hiring out everything else, right? Well, when you're first starting a company, you're everything in the job. Like if we went back to our companies, everything we've ever started, it was us doing all those roles. And then as it grows, right, you hit some type of a ceiling of achievement where you need some type of help, whether it's administrative help or an executive assistant or whatever the case may be to grow. Nobody succeeds alone, right? I say that all the time. Nobody succeeds alone.
So, as we identified these different ceilings of achievement and you could hire out from that, we started to do that once Terri and I kind of got our footing in, okay, this is what your role looks like. This is what my role looks like. Now we're growing. The best way to grow is hire right and stay in our genius. So what are the things I bring most to the business, whether we're using like DISC assessments or coaching or the Clifton Strengths Assessment? Like, let's acknowledge what our real genius is. And does those things that we're genius in bring us joy to do? Like in a DISC assessment, I always like the natural versus adaptive style. The style where you're more natural, you can have less burnout. The style you're more adaptive, you can fake it till you make it. But at some point, you're going to have less burnout. And I think, I joke with people a lot that my businesses, we've narrowed them down now. But over the last 10 years, my businesses were like in the TV space, in the hunting and fishing space, in airplane space, in the guns and scopes and all that stuff, television, based on those things. So basically, I've never grown up, right? Like I've just learned how to monetize the things I wanted to play with as kids, trucks, airplanes, go hunting, go fishing, right? And just figured out how to monetize that and then grow it insanely just for the sake of growing insane. Because for me, growth is fun and I'm high D and I'm high I. So I like to inspire and help others get what they want. So I just think that path, Terri really opened up a lot of doors for me. And now, we're basically looking how to replace her in some areas and replace me in some areas with other talent so we can even get more focused on our creative genius and do things like, we've gotten rid of a lot of our ancillary companies, but part of that too is, and you guys can be one of the first IC members to hear it, is because we're going to launch Dan Adler coaching. Actually, you guys got a little preview to that last week. So that piece will largely be leveraged by really good hires that Terri and I make and trusting the system, not hiring on emotion or one good interview. Like we just brought in a new person to the team that happened fast because we found out one of our rock stars gave us like 5-6 weeks notice. I was like, we got to do this fast, but we got to do it right. And fortunately, we found a candidate to be Terri's executive assistant who emotionally we'd be attached to because of who they got recommended by, but never would have made it through the process if they didn't pass a DISC, a Clifton Strengths, an interview with us, an interview with Shelly G, et cetera. So, Terri is really the reason why our business jumped and continues to grow really, really fast, in my opinion.
I love that. There's such an acceleration that can happen when you have identified your strengths and you are assigning each other roles and staying in each other's, staying out each other's way, staying in your appropriate lanes. And it sounds like you guys are definitely there now. I know for us, because we have a similar story in that, Alma had her own business and I started having my own business. And as we started to help each other out, we didn't have the strengths figured out initially. And it took us a while to sort of get into that. Once we did, it was kind of like, oh, okay. Like we would kind of upset with each other. Like, why don't you do it the way that I do it? And we would like kind of project and wish that the other worked the way we did, not understanding that what we're doing is actually slowing the other person down. So my question to you is like, did you guys kind of nail that from the beginning, or was there like a learning phase where you had to like feel each other out before you accelerated?
I think there was a learning phase. I think it was figuring out who's doing what, partially, but also we didn't really. I mean, you were familiar with the DISC, so he was very heavy into DISC, and we DISCed ourselves and like talked about it, but we didn't know about Clifton Strengths or some of those tools that go a little bit deeper. But I do think knowing things like the DISC and your personality styles did help, because it does, sort of uncover why somebody reacts the way they do or how they work the way they do. Dan and I are pretty much, I don't know, I guess you would call it opposites on the DISC, or complementing. So the way he would approach a problem would probably be totally opposite of how I approach it. And, our organizational styles are different. All of those things are a little bit different. So it helps knowing where the other person's coming from, so that you don't really, you can still get frustrated at times, but you're not getting mad at them because you better understand how they think about those problems or how their mind works. Like, I don't know, a good example is I'm super organized for the most part, whereas Dan's a real visionary and his mind can move 1,000,000 miles an hour. So he'll create these ideas, sort of blow it up over here and then leave the mess behind, metaphorically, whereas I'm still trying to clean up that mess and he's already moved on to the next idea. And somebody could easily, that's very sort of highly organized and likes order, could get easily frustrated by that. But when you can step back and really understand how they operate and where they're coming from and how each of our personalities work within that, I think it makes a big difference. But I don't know that we knew that over right away. It's definitely was a work in progress and kind of modify it as we go.
Yeah, for sure. I think obviously when we started working together, we just started like, there's no playbook. It's like, okay, you're going to take on this stuff. I'm going to take on this stuff. And the way, like, as Terri was saying, especially several years ago when I thought the badge of honor was how many companies can I grow and blow them up to XYZ dollars, type of income per year. It was just that speed. For me, it was speed and how fast can I win? I like to say win rings. How fast can I win more Super Bowl rings? And when I say win, it literally means win. Like if somebody that knows like Clifton Strengths or a DISC or an AVA or any of those behavioral assessments would see, like, I'm not financially motivated. I love the results of the finance, but I actually love the dopamine dump that comes with winning. So whether it's harvesting a world record bull elk for a client or something like that, I just want to win more rings. So like when we got a really big elk for a client 5 years ago, people were like, well, are you going to retire from elk hunting now? And I was like, no, the euphoria and the joy that brought me and the client is something I want to experience again and again for other clients. And it was a moment where, in all of my client camps over 20 years, only once or twice have I ever called Terri and been like, I know you're 3 hours away, but drop what you're doing, grab the kids and get here as fast as possible. You need to experience what's happening in this camp right now with the Super Bowl. And so my desire to win, my desire to move really fast and create new companies, my natural tendency is to be like, okay, team, like put it into Russell's world. Okay, we just left Funnel Hacking Live. Let's pretend it's the first day I've ever heard of Funnel Hacking Live or Russell. We go to a 4-day event. And at the end of the event, I would just look to my team and go, we need a funnel. And we need a funnel for Zero Outfitter fees and Diamond Outfitters. And then tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., I'm like, where's our funnel? Where's our funnel? Because I've got 3 more funnels we need. Where's our funnel, right? That's just how my brain naturally works. And so years ago when we first started, if I'm being like on the extreme end of it, that's where I would have been with things Terri and I are doing. And through the time that we've now been working together, 6, 7, 8 years now, and understanding her strengths better, and also just trying to be a better version of me, right? It's like, okay, this is a really good idea. And 2 things. One, when I give it to Terri, because of her strengths, it's going to be done at a way higher level than I would have done it if I was doing it by myself. And the details aren't going to be missed and clients aren't going to be left behind. And it's going to be a higher touch and more successful with more follow through. So those things became really important. And then in addition to that, it was also learning, like, Terri is my best friend and my business partner, but maybe, and this is only like the last year, like, or maybe even shorter, just through Inner Circle, just in the last 6 months, it's like, because I'm so high on that visionary and ideating schedule or score, I don't actually need to tell Terri or people that score like Terri every single idea that comes into my head, even if it truly is $1 million idea. And while that may sound kind of funny at once, it's also like, Terri and my team right now, media team, whatever, admin team, are working on this really big project. And this idea that nobody knows about that's sitting in my head right now is another $1 million project. So the game I have to play with myself now is let them run that through and then let them know that idea. But even more recently than that, in the last 3 months, it's like, actually, I need another person. This is a true story in my life that's a little higher on the ideating and visual schedule that I can just dump that on. Because if I were to dump that on a Terri or some of the other people in my company, like Nick, who scores similar in that area about focusing on things being done at a high level before starting the next project, I can actually cause them a lot of stress by telling them my next $1 million idea, like actual stress that could hurt the work that's already in progress. So now it's like, I almost need a buddy or a wingman outside of those things to be like, dude, guess what I've got in the coffers right now? I've got this $15 million coaching program that's totally dialed in my head. And now I'm quote unquote waiting for my team to catch up to me. Now, years ago, that high D in me would be like, why am I waiting? Like, do we need to hire more people, fire people? What's happening? And I'm like, no, what we've done right is we've got creative geniuses in our company. I'm not one of them. I score the lowest. It's funny, but I actually score the lowest for organization that the score allows. So I'm completely disorganized, Probably ADD. It's also probably my superpower. Never been diagnosed, never had it checked out, but just meeting people that are ADD and asking them questions. I'm probably extreme ADD, and I don't know why I don't want to get diagnosed officially to find out. I don't know. But I think if I have it, it's my superpower. And just trusting this process. So for example, from the first time we met Russell to the time we launched the funnel was 2.5 years. Now, it wasn't a full-time funnel build for 2.5 years. It was running our other companies and learning how to do it. And now that we have more people and more systems in place, yeah, we could launch a funnel really fast. But as you can imagine, for me, a super high D with an even higher I, it's like 2.5 years to build a funnel. Are you freaking kidding me? But not like in an angry way, just like, get on my level. Let's go. Let's charge that hill. And now I'm like, you know what? If I just look at how the companies are actually doing, if I don't have to vomit everything in my brain on the people around me that love me, and I can table that stuff, the company is actually going to grow faster. So how this actually plays out is there's sometimes where I feel like I'm literally twiddling my thumbs, binge watching a TV show. Like, I'm just going to sit on this idea. It's weird to me that other people are working really hard while I'm sitting on this, but I also know that they're building my next webinar, my next TV show, my next podcast, my next webinar that's going to be a super high level thing. So let them do that thing, because my genius is they can put that thing in front of me on a board without even practicing it, and I can crush it in a live audience the first time I go. So yeah. I'll focus on my strengths, they'll focus on their strengths, and everybody live happily ever after. That pretty good summary?
Terri too, right? So I am curious now, first of all, what are your guys' top one, your first strengths?
I'm a SC.
I'm a ID above the line, and then I think on the Clifton strength, it's like visionary, ideating. I can pull it up actually with pretty easy access. But
I'm a visionary too. That's my number one. So,
yeah, and they're all the things that go with that. Yeah, they're all the other Clifton strengths that kind of go with.
We're super complementary as well. In the same way you guys are, where she's the ideator a lot of times, and I'm the one like, well, we're already doing these other things. Let me grab this out of thin air, stick it into a task manager or whatever to try to create some sort of sanity.
Yeah. And as we were creating our 2026 goals, we decided, and so this is what we're going to do in 2026. This is it. And we use ClickUp as our project management software. So any new idea that comes our way between now and the completion of all of these goals is just going to have to go in the idea project, right?
Yeah.
And so that way we can visit it frequently, but we're not acting on it, because I'm just like, hey, wouldn't it be great if we just did this? And wouldn't it be great if we did that and did it? And
well, we're already doing the thing.
Like,
yeah, I can totally relate. It like overloads your brain when you're still trying to, prioritize and do this to-do list on the last idea or the last 10 ideas.
Yes.
I'm going to send a video to both of you. It's an Alex Hormozi video where he talks about this, and he got it from the concept rate of release from Jeff Bezos, because he basically said you can drown your entire company and destroy it by releasing too many ideas. So what Hormozi does is actually creates a logbook of every idea. He writes it down, and then when it's time for something, he'll go back through his book and just see what's actually a good idea. And what he found actually is that a lot of them, when some space, when a gap was created between the idea and the revisiting of it, it's like, oh, that's a dumb idea. I'm glad I never made that thing happen. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a benefit as well.
Yeah. I love that. I think one of the things I found too in this process is that by just almost like slowing down and taking a breath in between ideas, and it's helped that we've hired people that like, they love me enough to just be like, stop. Like they'll cut me off halfway through a sentence, like, stop. Like you're 6 weeks ahead of me right now. That's not necessarily Terry's. She won't be that formal with me necessarily, but some of the other guys on my team will be like, stop. Like they'll literally stop me, which is good for me. And then I'm like, yeah, I just need to go tell this to a buddy real quick, or keep it to myself, or journal it like Alex Hormozi's doing or whatever, and come back to it, because they care so much about, like, I know they believe in my genius. They're just concerned about it being done right. And I'm just concerned about being done. So because I know it's gonna be done right, I can take that piece and be like, all right, when they're ready, like then I'll do the next thing. So I like that idea. I may steal that idea of journaling it.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, and as long as you're not made wrong for being that way, I think that's what it was for us.
Yeah.
You know, it was what James said. You know, him wishing that I was more deliberate, right? It's like slow down, think it through, sleep on it, and me wishing that he was faster. It's like, come on, let's go, right?
Right.
But then because he's on a disc assessment, since that's what we're using, he's a DC. You know, he because of my motoring through life, he kind of retired his D and went into his C just to clean up all of my messes, right? So when I actually stopped making him wrong, his D could actually shine, right? And he
Yeah.
could actually take charge, which allowed me to relax and, you know, so all the things that we often talk about, right? And then it would allow me to go into my feminine, which allowed him to be in his masculine. So I think, you know, when we don't make the other one wrong, when we just allow the other person to be who they are, settles, right? Everything just goes where it belongs.
I think the other thing that's important for your listeners to hear in that, Alma, is that like as the high D, as the driven, and for me having a high I, wanting to be seen and heard, it's also important to understand, especially if you're somebody that's just trying to do this with a spouse, it's like when I have an idea, my high I follows it with a lot of excitement. So my D brings me with a lot of power and conviction and charge that mountain. But my high I is like, I need validation. I need you to share that excitement with me that this is a great idea. And I don't want to, and I can't change Terri. So if she's so concerned about fixing my last mess that she can't be that excited with me right now, if we haven't been through this process together and been together so long, I could, and in past have been like, man, don't rain on my parade. Not necessarily saying those words to her, but emotionally, like, don't rain on my parade. Like, don't poo-poo this idea right now. I just need you to hear it. And it's like, it's not because she doesn't love me or she's not excited about it too. It's like, she's still making greatness out of my last idea. I need to be more excited about, she literally is taking my total mess of a self and making it great. And so she's not poo-pooing on my next idea or not sharing my enjoyment. She'll share my next enjoyment, but she's so dedicated to getting it right and accurate and organized and good fulfillment and follow through with our clients that I just need to trust that process. So it's almost like I need a secret friend or Chat GPT just to go, or you, Alma, because you're an ideator too, and be like, I've got this idea and it's totally insane. Let's do it. Like, it's totally insane. You're totally right. And then you'd be like, don't tell Terri yet. Right. So
on that same note, I have to try and like dial down because my brain immediately goes, okay, how would we implement that? Here's some problems I already see. Here's what we need to do. Here's what, I don't know. That's not going to work.
I don't want to hear any of that.
Yeah.
I just want to be like, yeah, you're the man. That's a great idea.
Shut that part down for a little bit and just let him talk.
Yeah.
I'm like, what'd you think of, like 2 days later, what'd you think of that idea? Let's table that conversation. All right. Doesn't mean she hates it. It means like, I'm still catching up to you, like, which is cool because I still feel the trust, right? I still know that if this was a bad idea at inception, we wouldn't be working so hard on it. Her staff and our media team wouldn't be working so hard to implement it. So it just goes back to, it's a little weird because they're literally, especially in the last couple of years, as we've really blown up our businesses, I feel like I have more time off now than I've ever had, which is weird because we have more customers, more fulfillment, more work. But my piece of the pie is literally uncomfortable for me. And that's to go sit on my hands and stay away from the office for large parts at a time, go for a walk, finish writing my book. Like literally, they don't get in my way when I'm on stage. So why would I get on their way when they're on stage? But that's when they're doing their things, they're on their stage. And so, you know, even last night, I'm like, Terri, it's 7:00, babe, you gotta be out of the office. And I've been watching, you know, Monday Night Football for 3 hours. I'm like, how can I be watching football if my wife's in the office? Like in the military, if somebody's working, we're all working. Mm-hmm. And I just have to understand that they're building something massive for me that they feel like in their hearts, I'm the hero that can deliver it. And like, that makes me emotional. Like they believe that much in me. When we did our high ticket offers this year, the success we saw in those was like, there are people that believe that highly in me to deliver that I'm going to go be the quote unquote lazy bum that goes and sits and watches Monday Night Football or whatever the case may be. because that's their part. Now, do I want to hire more people to take that off of Terry's plate? Yeah, that's a different story. But in the interim, it's like, yeah, when it's time for me to deliver, I just need to remember this moment where I'm like, I've been sitting on my hands. And now it's like, okay, now it's time to deliver my message to 100, 1,000, 10,000, a million people. Now this is my Super Bowl. Now I owe them. This is where I pay them back spiritually, emotionally, financially, for all that time behind those doors. And so that's a very powerful exercise for me.
For sure. And I'm curious now, how did that, so at some point, Terry does clock out, right? And at some point you guys go step into your marriage, right? So how does that affect your marriage?
Well, I know there's like some non-negotiables. Like if there's something family related, or the kids have a sporting event, or anything that, is like a family event, it's like hard stop. We definitely clock out. So that's kind of our non-negotiable that always happens. I think when the lines get blurred more because I'm real big on, like, I always want to finish my to-do list, whether it's, usually the to-do list is way too long, but I try to get it all done in one day for whatever reason. And it just constantly keeps piling on each other. So it's easy for me to just keep going. So I think Dan tries to keep me in check by being like, hey, look at the clock. It's time to clock out. And I try to balance that and get what I really need done over, trying to prioritize a little more family time and spending time together. Sometimes it's just winding down together. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's, we used to do really regular date nights, which we don't do as much now that we work together because we're together more, but we do sometimes. It's like when we had separate jobs, we made, a separate date night or a specific time just because we were apart. But now that we're working together more, I guess we kind of moved away from that. I'm just thinking.
No, we have less official date days, but we have a lot more unofficial. Like, hey, let's go grab breakfast in the morning. Hey, let's go get a massage. Hey, like Terry's saying, we don't miss, with very little exception. We have a college athlete. Our oldest son plays baseball, which is a 60, 70 game season. Our daughter is in both club volleyball and softball, and we'll be this winter doing both at the same time. And so those what I call life events, those are non-negotiable. So we'll be there even if we get behind on other work. We'll schedule those before we schedule other stuff. But my need for spontaneity, and Terry's actually become even more spontaneous in the 20 plus years we've been together. It's like, it could be like 5 o'clock. I'm like, hey, what do you got planned for dinner? And she'll say nothing. I'm like, great, we're going to this place, or I'm going to order this. Or the other thing I will say too is, I'm very blessed that Terry and I have taken a really big passion for travel when we're not working. And as our kids have gotten older, and I feel like this window to spend massive quantities of time with them might be shrinking, I often use the word, and it's probably not the appropriate word, but I often use the word overcompensating, that I'm overcompensating for our busy work travels, business travel schedule, so that when we do travel, they're kind of like, they're major events. It's 10 days in Costa Rica. It's a week in Hawaii. It's seeing Taylor Swift on different nights in Europe. It's, I could literally go down this list of cruises. Like, we really, when we're down, doesn't mean we don't take some work with us on the trips. As entrepreneurs, I think that's part of it. But we do a lot of, every 6 to 8 weeks, we're doing something that's kind of a big event in the average person's lifetime. And we try to do spectacular events like every 6 to 8 weeks. So I think that's one of the other ways. And we do get dates, together. We get dates separate. And then just because we are working together, we have more spontaneity. I love being spontaneous. If that was a Clifton Strengths, it would come up in my top 5. I don't think it's one of them. But I think that's also just the ADD and the high I. It's like, I want to be entertained. I want to have fun. I'm getting better about sitting around doing nothing and finding out what to do with that time, especially the more I've learned the more I've fallen in love with learning, which is something I hated as a kid, but love now, if it's in something I'm interested in. So I feel like we've gotten better about that. Another way, the way you initially asked the question is, I don't know that I put this in my first, and I don't know if I've said it before, but like, when Terry and I got married, I probably would go back and say, in that moment, if you were interviewing that version of me, there is no possible way I could ever love Terry more than I love her right now. And then fast forward to my son's birth, and I would say, I could never love a woman more than I love Terri right now. And then you could fast forward to my daughter's birth. And then now it just feels like every day. Like it's just, I can't imagine waking up and loving Terri any more than I do. Or, which I think is really important, or liking her. I like her more today than I liked her yesterday. And I'm going to like her more tomorrow. And I respect her more today than I did yesterday. And I'll respect her more tomorrow. So for me, can't say this for her, but for me, it's like, I just adore and love and I'm attracted to and just want to spend more time with Terri than even the day before. And I think that is a gift from working together I could not have ever expected, because I knew how talented she was in physical therapy. I knew how much her bosses adored her, loved her, but I never got to see her work. And now I get to see her work. And I've got to watch her at my trade shows where she, the first couple of years, stood in the corner, like trying to learn everything I had to say. And now she's out front of me, or when I'm giving a seminar, leading the charge and selling hunting vacations. So it's made her so much. I think it's God too. I think that's me understanding and appreciating just how strong she is and how much power she's given me to allow me to really pursue the best version of me, which I don't know about you, James, but like trying to find the best version of me is like one of the things that most fascinates me at this stage of my life. How can I be a better dad than I was yesterday? How can I be a better husband than I was yesterday? How can I be a better business owner than I was yesterday? How can I be more spiritual or religious than I was yesterday? Like this constant, it's not an obsession, but it's like this constant, how do I just be a little bit better version of me is really something that's kind of become important to me in this process.
Yeah.
Well, it pays dividends for you and your family and the people you serve and God and the country and the world. Like it literally ripples out. You're in a game of expansion, right? And you've seen, based on evidence, what the results are of your input into this process of growing. Same way, yeah. Like I was just talking to Alma about how, I found I used to take Ella out on dates to our daughter. She's 13. I used to take her to like a sweets, like a bakery, but it's kind of like not as cool anymore. But then I found out, I'm like, we're at the mall for shopping for her friends for Secret Santa, and I was like, hey babe, what do you think about us coming to the mall every once in a while and like go and get it? And she's like, I love that. So I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. So now that it just enhances everything. It enhances the mood of the house. It enhances the amount of love that's in the house. It enhances the productivity that we have, because we're not. It just all builds and grows and gets bigger and allows for more abundance. So I mean, yeah, I think that's a good game to be in.
Yeah, and you're learning, right? You're always learning how can I do this better. I just remember this past summer, Ella's 13, so she's just entering that whole teenage world. You guys just left that kind of, so how it was. Probably 13 is probably more challenging, because you're like, who is this person? Right? Who is my kid becoming, right? And when you take your kid across the ocean and you're sitting in this pool on the island of Santorini, and you're looking at the volcano, and your kid is like, I'm bored. And you're like, what? Right? And then she gets so excited when he wants to take her to the mall. It's these little things, these simple things, right? And it's recognizing that. So I think that's kind of where that almost addiction begins. It's like, how can I do better? I don't have to take my kid across the ocean. I can just serve my kids to whatever she needs right now, whatever she needs from me right now. But I think it's also the same thing goes for your spouse, right? Yeah. You don't have to do these elaborate date nights, right? You can just take dinner off her hands. You can just say, hey, let's go have breakfast. Let's just do this. But it's these little things that really matter the most.
Yeah. It's really funny that you said it too. Maybe this is the same thing that just popped into Terry's head, but one of the things we've done the last few years is, and I'm sure you guys have done it, is that whole love languages test.
Yes, I was going to bring that up. 100%.
Yeah. So one of the things that blew my mind when Terri and I recently compared notes is actual physical gifts is the lowest category for both of us. Now, I've got to say, as a husband, that was like music to my ears, because I'm terrible about buying physical gifts because I'm so into experiences. I would rather buy Terri a cruise than a Target gift card or like, I just feel so, I'm not a shopper for when I'm a buyer. And yeah, I could say, what do you want me to buy you? And I'll go buy it, but that's not very spontaneous or romantic. You know, I know Terry's bought and wrapped your own gifts before. Like, on the other hand, I'm like, okay, and I'm not trying to use this as an excuse for those of you watching this, don't get me wrong, but it's like, I'm going to take Terry to Hawaii next week. So I'm pretty sure we're covered for New Year's. Like, I'm not going to buy maybe a physical gift, right? But that's how my brain kind of works. I do want to just backtrack for 1 second too. When I was kind of talking about the growth, my personal growth, I really want to call out both of you individually. When I first got into this world, I initially had only met James. And one of the things I really was inspired by, and I'm still acting on now, is how gracious you were when I was in Prime Mover. And then as you went to Inner Circle and I went to Inner Circle, just you as an individual, before I met Alma, like, man, this James guy is like, he'll stop anything he's doing anytime to help somebody in this group. No ands, ifs, or buts, doesn't expect anything in return. He's like just a good human. Like, I want to be in Inner Circle because I want to hang out and have proximity to somebody like James. And then Alma, when I got to meet you here a few weeks ago and heard your story on stage, I'm like, these guys, like, I'm so glad we're in Inner Circle. Like, Russell, if you're listening, I'll write the check in again and again to have proximity to these kind of people. And I'm saying that to you guys. I would say it even if we were off air, like, that's one of the things I love so much about what we're doing. We as Inner Circle, is like, you know what? There's that old saying about show me the 5 people you hang out with, and I'll show you your ceiling of achievement where you could go. When I met Inner Circle members and Atlas members, it's like our brains are broken. Like, our old financial goals, our old saving goals, they're like, no, we set the bar way too low. We can do so much more good for the world and ourselves and our family and generations, and take care of, you know, if my mom's got a roof leak, she doesn't have to worry about how she's going to pay for it. And, you know, if our friends had a roof leak, like, you know, we could figure it out. And so it's just, how can we help more people? How can we touch more lives? And so this Inner Circle, you guys are so inspirational. When you guys asked me if we would come on the show, I was like, I am honored to do anything with you guys anytime. I would just be happy to push your cart at the shopping mall. Like, you guys are freaking rock stars. So I appreciate you guys a lot.
Thank you, Dan. And I think that's what it is about our group of people. You know, it's that generosity, it's that giving, right? There's no keeping of tab, right? It's just service. Because when you surround yourself with people who show up in a way where they don't have to be stingy, they don't have to keep track of who did what, right? There's this aura, there's this thing about that person where you're like, there's so much within you that you're overflowing, right? There's just so much goodness pouring out of you. And when you're surrounded by, let's say, 5 of those people, I mean, it would be really hard to fail in life and in business.
Right.
It's like you have to really try hard to fail.
That's a really good point. I like that. You would really have to, if you're in Inner Circle, you would have to try really hard to fail. That's a really powerful point.
Thank you. And really, the honor is ours, really. When we first met you guys, I told James, I'm like, oh my gosh, the Adlers, I really want to get to know those people. And, you know, I'm a person who kind of just dives, deep end first. So that's why when I reached out, like, okay, let's just do it. Let's just do this and get to know them better now, right? We don't have to, you know, slowly
on a live stream.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's just do it. So we're really, really grateful for you guys. And I do have one more question, just kind of final question, because I'm obsessed with mixing business with marriage. I really do believe that there is no separation. Like I said at the beginning of this call, this is life, and you pick your person. You know, James and I have been married for 19 years, a little bit less than you guys, but also we've been together since 2001. So you know, we were 21 when we met, when we started dating. You don't know that person. You don't know who you're going to grow up to be in your 40s and beyond, right? So it's kind of like luck of the draw. And then you're like, okay, well, you're the person. I don't believe in divorce. So you don't believe in divorce. We're going to figure this out together, right? So you get through obstacles together. And with you guys, just simple question here. When you are unplugged from business, do you guys have a challenge? Is there a challenge? Like, what should we talk about? If it's not kids or business, is there Are we stuck for conversation?
Oh, like hard to come up with what to talk about? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No.
Not at all for me. No.
I think we have a pretty good balance of work and non-work, conversation. I do think I totally agree with you, Alma, that it's not like two separate entities. I mean, they just sort of mesh together. So there's obviously going to be overflow. Like we could be talking about just life 1 minute and then work another minute and then switch back, and they just kind of overlap.
I bet if you had like a bug at a restaurant with Terri and I having dinner, it would be like a microphone bug, it would be really funny to listen to me. Maybe even more so than Terri, because I'm the one that'll bounce back and forth mostly. I think sometimes we consciously don't talk about work or we unplug, but we also like our work. So so talking about our work or me taking a call, walking on the beach can be very inspiring for me. Like I came back from one trip to Puerto Vallarta where we spent 5 or 6 days by the beach, and I called one of my coaches and I said, "Hey, I'm texting you a picture right now of some notes I took while walking the beach." And I said, "I understand this is very much a self-fulfilling prophecy, but I think this is $1 million idea. And I just want your opinion if this is $1 million idea." And she said, "It's a multi-million dollar idea." And so we slowly started implementing that. And then so for some people, they're like, "Oh, that would judge that." They're like, "Oh God, that sounds awful. You're thinking about your job and how to make more work while you're on the beach. Like, that's not a vacation, dude. A vacation's where you sit by the beach for 6 days and don't do a damn thing." And I'm thinking to myself, that's your idea of a vacation. Yeah. If I get $1 million idea on a beach, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to book more beach vacations and make it that self-fulfilling prophecy and write myself the check. But I think the thing with Terri and I is some of the things outside of work that I'm grateful for. Like you said, Alma, you don't know 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years down the road what each person's interest might or might not be and how that might change. Terri's and I's interests, thankfully, at this time in our lives have converged a lot. So we may have had a lot of different cool things going on before, but a lot of our ideas, like our love for our family, obviously grows every day. Our desire to spend time with them in different and unique ways grows every day. That gives us a lot to talk about. Our joint love of travel and talking about places we've been and how much we enjoyed it and how much we want to go to XYZ place we haven't been, or how soon we might go back to a place, like just to, I guess, have almost like a fantasy, like in our next event, let's have those fantasies about where would you go next if time and money were no object. Like, what would that look like? Where would we go? Because generally we're like, well, let's go to this place before we go to XYZ place a second or third time. It's like, but if it was New Zealand, like, what would that look like? Because we loved it so much, we'd go back. So we have a lot to talk about outside of work that are joint. What I'm saying is that we have enough joint interests now. Terri actually just did her first big game hunt 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So we've been together 26 years. She just did her first big game hunt 2 weeks ago. So and that wasn't necessarily by design. It was by a state lottery. So that one we really didn't have any control over. But I think just our interests have converged so much that there is other stuff to talk about. But we could literally be halfway through a conversation about a trip to New Zealand or a conversation about our kids' sports and then be like, "Oh, don't let me forget, we need to still book the hotel for the trade show coming up in Indianapolis," and then immediately go back to talking about Josh's baseball or Rebecca's softball. So I think we would probably be pretty funny for the table next door listening to us to be like, "Wow, those guys are like a ping pong ball."
Well, I think you said something at the beginning that made me think, we don't know who we're going to turn into or evolve into when we meet, in our young 20s. But I do think, at the foundation, we had very similar, like our core values are the same, which, I mean, hopefully that's what people are looking for when they decide to marry someone. So I think those core values have remained the same or even gotten stronger. So building on those, we never run out of anything that we're aligned with or want to talk about or build on. And
I would add to that too. Terri, I talked about how Terri and I were together from March 26th of 1999 until April 12th of 2003 before we got married. That's a long time for some people, but I am a child of a divorce, and that divorce was not pretty. And you said something earlier about, you guys collectively don't believe in divorce. And I feel like in my heart, I don't believe in divorce, even though some of the family members, more than just my mom, have experienced divorce. And to me, it's like, it's just the most awful, traumatic thing aside from the death of that spouse that I could think of. And so I feel like in that time that we weren't married, I was like, okay, there's a lot going on here. Number one, if Terry's going to be with me, she needs to understand I don't believe in divorce. And probably nobody goes into a marriage that gets divorced saying they believe in divorce, but it's like, I don't believe in divorce. I'll do anything I can. But I was also a young officer in the military with a likelihood that for the next 20 or 30 years, between 3 and 6 months of that year per year for 20 or 30 years, I was going to be gone. And she had to be independent enough that she could live with that. And I had to be independent enough that I could be comfortable with that, and understanding that I would be without seeing my children potentially 50% of their life till their 18th birthday. Now, I decided not to do that, and that's why I got out before we started having children. But I think just that understanding of, I don't believe in divorce. I'm an Air Force guy that's going to be gone potentially 6 to 9 months in a year. They may send me on a remote assignment to Korea for a year and I'll be gone. You can't come visit me. And then honestly too, even at that time, it was literally conversations like, Terry, a lot of my friends that are getting married, they've stopped doing what they enjoy in the big game hunting world because their wives complain when they go hunting. And I'm like, I need a spouse that knows that I'm going to continue to be a big game hunter, even if we get married someday, not because I need to go out there and kill animals. That's not why I hunt. It's that time in the woods. It's that time where I decompress. It's that time where I see nature and feel close to God that needs to continue. And I wanted Terry to and I needed to be okay saying that, and she needed to be okay being independent enough that could survive all those things. And obviously I feel like we're thriving now. We're better than we've ever been, in my opinion. And every day is it's new and it's special and it's fun. And I do think that's a big thing for those listening, that, it's a lot of time together. Make it fun, keep it light. Don't sit on things. If you're upset or frustrated about something, kill that dragon while it's young, and just appreciate every day.
I love that. Kill that dragon while it's young. Wow, there's so much. I can't thank you enough for being here, for talking us through this and what success has meant for you guys and for your marriage and for your business, and joining forces and leaning into each other's strengths and being on the same page. In your case, probably from the get-go, and being careful for those first few years, making sure that you are on the same mission and that you can handle each other's mission. All these massive nuggets that we took away from this, and I know everybody else will do the same.